Maybe stop trying to find a boyfriend on TikTok or Snapchat or all these places where people can be more easily dishonest about their age. Because at the end of the day, David Dobrik and Seth Francois can play the blame game. Shane Dawson and Jeffree Star can toss blame if they want. But you cannot play a blame game with a child. And as special as James Charles thinks he is, you are not so special that you're the only one who's getting caught up in these spaces where kids are trying to pretend they're adults. Hey there. Welcome to the last video I'm filming in DC. By the time you guys see this, I will be set up in my apartment in Savannah, hoping that nothing goes wrong. Well, some things will go wrong, but hoping that enough will go right that I am not homeless in a week. So by the time you're watching this, if you're watching this, if it's watchable, I at least have an internet connection, so that's a good sign. But truth be told, I'm super, super excited. I'm getting cold feet here and there, but those cold feet cannot kill my joy about this move. So I'll let y'all know how it goes. But as for today's topic, it's a bit of a broad topic because the state of affairs on YouTube right now, it's like, forget calling it Dramageddon. Right now, YouTube is on fire. Like the online world, the influencer world is... Well, I mean, I guess an Armageddon really is as final and doom-filled as it can get, but we've overused that term. So I don't know what to call what we're in right now, but I do think looking at what's going on with creators like James Charles, what we were talking about recently with David Dobrik, what was happening before that with Shane Dawson, and so many other creators, but those are a few good examples, I think needs to start a conversation about power, how it is lusted after, how it is exchanged, how it is abused, and how slippery of a slope it is when we're dealing with power and people who have a lot of it. And what do we do about this problem that kind of follows wherever power goes? I don't know the answer to that, but hopefully with starting these conversations, we can get somewhere with it. That's me being a bit idealistic, but somebody's got to be. I don't know which video it was where I said it first, and I know I'm not the only or the first person to say this, but I did say at one point that I believe Shane Dawson sold his soul to the devil when he made that deal with Jeffree Star to work on an eyeshadow palette. And one could say in general, just working with Jeffree Star. And as much as I love that play on words, seemingly implying that Jeffree Star is the devil, that's not what I mean by that. When I say that somebody in the influencer world has sold their soul, I'm almost exclusively talking to people who have made some sort of deal, whether overtly or not, that buys them some sort of money or power in a way that is cheap, that is not justly and fairly and honestly earned, but rather done in some sort of cheap way. And I think the moral of the story is, I'm just going to set it outright, is that this stuff always backfires. If you sell your soul to the devil, it's going to backfire. We have, I don't know how many fables from the beginning of time that tell us that selling your soul is always going to backfire. Because I'm positive you needed to hear that message from me today. But yeah, I said it about Shane Dawson. To be clear, if you don't know about my knowledge of Shane Dawson or my history with watching him or not watching him, is that when I became more aware of Shane Dawson in recent years, I thought that he was a pretty much beloved creator, not far beneath the Jenna Marbles of the world. There's only one Jenna Marbles. There's only one person comparable to Jenna Marbles, unless we're counting Julian Solomita, which I do. This is a super quick reminder to like this video and subscribe to my channel if that's something you want to do. If that's not something you want to do, just don't. I'll shut up and start talking now. But that's all to say that I saw Shane Dawson as this beloved creator who was very wholesome and not somebody who could be taken down that easily. And then, of course, I came to find out really just how awful Shane Dawson was with his earlier content. And I think that with Shane Dawson's cancellation, because he may have a comeback, but it's not going to be anytime soon. In fact, I think that as soon as he was starting to plan a comeback, things got even worse for him when this Hair by Jay stuff came out, which implicated Jeffree Star as well as Shane Dawson and Rylan Adams, all by association, really just being shit people to such loyal friends as Trisha Paytas. So really, you could look at it this way. Jenna Marbles went online last summer to say, hey guys, I am more problematic than you give me credit for, and I'm not having fun on YouTube anymore, and I'm out canceling myself. Bye. And clearly Shane Dawson thought that was a good time for him to do the same, or not to cancel himself, but to come forward and apologize-ish for the things that he'd done in the past and say that he doesn't deserve his platform, which a lot of people agreed with. And so from there, then everything started to surface from his past, and then he fell and fell and fell and kept falling. And I cannot say for positive that stuff wouldn't have happened had Jeffree Star not entered his life. We can't say that. We can't know. However, I did see Jeffree Star come into Shane's life in a way that made it look like Shane Dawson is selling his soul. Shane Dawson is making an eyeshadow palette, which he has no business doing. And he did it. He made a ton of money. And now he's got no career. So, I don't know how much of an issue power is. I know that power and power imbalances and the need for power and all of that, or the hunger for power and all of that, I know it's a thing in Hollywood, obviously, because we see things like the Harvey Weinsteins of the world. But I don't know how much of an issue power addiction is in Hollywood as it is in the influencer world, just because so much of the influencer world is transparent. It's out there. We see it. I don't know. I don't know if mainstream celebrities have the same level of problems that influencers do when it comes to this stuff. Maybe they do, and then that's just a broader conversation to have. Or maybe they don't, and there's something that influencers need to learn from mainstream celebrities. And I think especially somebody like James Charles, if there is something to be learned, I really think James Charles especially is somebody who's going to have to figure that out. But more on him in a little bit. Recently, there's been talk around David Dobrik and his influence, but let's be real, his power over other people, and just these weird dynamics that creates. In a recent video, I talked about Trisha Paytas and Big Nick going on the H3 podcast to talk about their experiences within the Vlog Squad and also what they witnessed with other people on the Vlog Squad. I think a really good example, although it was very brief as an example on the podcast, but also in my video, was when Trisha Paytas brought up just how David Dobrik is able to control his friends for his content because of the magnitude of his platform. And frankly, the kind of money that David Dobrik has to just throw around for the growth of his platform. So the example that Trisha Paytas brought up was Corinna Kopf and Toddy Smith engaging in sexual acts in a car, and how David Dobrik had footage of that and wanted to put it in one of his vlogs. And in this example, Trisha tells us that Corinna and Toddy both said they did not want that clip going online, and essentially, they and David went back and forth until he named a price that was worth them giving that up. What we didn't talk about, because this happened right after I filmed that video, was Seth Francois, kind of the Vlog Squad's token black friend, or formerly known as. If you didn't know, David Dobrik and Jason Nash have played a prank on their former friend Seth twice, in which they tricked Seth into making out with Jason Nash.
Was really making out with Jason. Shut the fuck up! Oh!
Congrats on your commercial, Seth.
Are you fucking kidding me? It's murder!
And Seth has recently come out to say that he considers this a sexual assault. And a lot of people are backing up Seth and completely supporting him in that. And I do too, for several reasons. One aspect of all of this, though, is the question that comes up for people like Seth, for people like Corinna, for people like Toddy, is And even people like Big Nick talking about how he sacrificed his dignity for David Dobrik's jokes in his vlogs. The question comes up, well, what do they get out of it? Because these people do get something out of, really all of them, either selling their dignity or having it taken from them. They get something out of it. And it is kind of this exchange of power, whether that be through money, through exposure, association with David Dobrik and his friends and whatever that comes along with. Problem is that stuff is fleeting, for one. And that's the big problem at hand, is because when all is said and done, perhaps you've amassed all these followers or a name for yourself or money. But at the end of the day, if you've made a joke of yourself in a way that's destructive, you're left with however much money and followers and a lack of happiness, which is evident by what Big Nick showed us or told us about in his interview with H3. But kind of going back to what people get out of this, I think it's easy for everybody to point their fingers at everybody else and be like, well, you did this to me. Yeah, but you consented to it. You got something out of it. You got something out of it. And it's true. Everybody gets something out of it, generally speaking, in these situations. I think it's safe to say that David gets a lot out of these situations because he doesn't really have to be in his videos very much. And the guy's rich as fuck. But at the same time, people are clamoring to be his friend, to be in his vlogs, because the exposure is worth that much. So who's at fault? I mean, I'm less interested in who's at fault and more interested in just a conversation about being cognizant of power in and of itself and what it does. Because the way I look at it is power is being used in the influencer world as currency. And it is as dangerous and addictive as something like heroin. That's the best way I could put it. Just imagining the influencer world using heroin as their sole currency. And if that's kind of the way I'm going to look at it, then it's like the David Dobriks of the world, the Jeffree Stars of the world, these are the big time suppliers, right? And everybody else is just kind of trying to get their fix. And at what cost? It's a very destructive thing, and I'm really sad to see that somebody like David Dobrik, who I've been a fan of for quite some time, can afford to just completely ignore any sort of wrongdoing, any sort of harm that he's caused, any sort of drama or controversy surrounding him and his platform. He can afford to get away with it all because at this point he is a power kingpin. So I don't know how okay, as an example, I don't know how okay Seth was at the time with these pranks that David and Jason played on him. I am sure to some degree he told himself that, again, I'm getting this power, this exposure, this whatever. I'm getting my fix in exchange for my dignity, in exchange for the respect of the people around me, in exchange for this sense of feeling violated, etc. I do think it's every single person's individual responsibility to keep in mind what they're giving up in exchange for these things. But for sure, the person who is harboring the most power and the person who has the longer standing experience holding that power should be more cognizant of that power and what they're doing with it. And I think most of the time they are. As an example, yes, Shane Dawson was just as big of a YouTuber, influencer, whatever, as Jeffree Star. But over the years, we saw that Shane wasn't really all that aware of what he could do with his star power. Jeffree, on the other hand, is somebody who saw himself as powerful, well, right out the gate. And so to varying degrees, these powerful people are like puppet masters, and they're playing on other people's weaknesses to get something out of that, to feed them these little doses of power and get something out of it while ruining that person. I truly believe that that is what Jeffree Star does with his platform, knowingly. I think Jeffree Star cognitively does that. I think David Dobrik doesn't necessarily mean to do anything sinister with his platform, but I think that somewhere he is conscious of the fact that he is a powerful person and what he does is manipulative. So it's a bit more Machiavellian on his end, not necessarily meaning to destroy people, but definitely justifying his means with an end. But here more recently, the subject of James Charles and his interactions online with underage boys has come up.
So trigger warning, I will be talking about grooming and James Charles. So if you get triggered by any of those, keep scrolling. But if not, watch this video, please. So last Wednesday on the 17th, James Charles snapped me on Snapchat. He added me back because I had snapped him a while ago, just like a fan to influencer conversation. I was excited because he's my biggest influencer-wise, and I've always looked up to him, so I was excited to get his message back. I don't have a lot of time, so I'm going to post proof of it right now. This is the notification that I got when he Snapchatted me first. And just for further proof, he deleted the chat. I don't know what he deleted, but that's me opening his Snapchat. I went into the bathroom, and I guess he saw the bathroom light, so he started making the conversation very sexual, and it made me really uncomfortable. And I'll post some of the stuff that he sent me now. You can't see it because it's blurry, because I took it on my iPad, because I don't want him to see that I screenshotted it, but I'll post it right now. He proceeded to send me explicit pictures of his body. So after sending me that first picture of his body, explicitly, he sent me multiple after that, and I'll post them now. I was getting really uncomfortable, so I told him my age. I told him I'm 16. Meanwhile, he's 21. He's a grown man. And then he proceeds to say, oh, but I didn't even get to see meaning my body. And after telling him, like, no, like, I'm not gonna send it to you, he kept on asking for pictures and videos of body hair and me flexing and stuff. He proceeded to ask to FaceTime me, which I then said no to, and then I asked why. And this is what he said. It's sad to say that I can't even look up my biggest influence the same again. I've heard multiple stories about him doing this to people, but you never believe it until it happens to you. So now I'm a big believer of what James Charles does to other people, and it sucks because he has so much going for him, and he does this to himself.
Alright, so as you guys can see, he's questioning my confidence because I didn't want to send him a specific explicit photo. And I just find that very disgusting. Like, who does that to a person? Over here I was telling him I was tired and that it was late, but he didn't seem to care, so... Obviously, me being me, I didn't want to lose the opportunity to talk to him, so I continued to do what he said. Anyways, I was getting really tired because it was super late. It was almost 4 o'clock a.m. and when I told him I wanted to sleep, he started to make me feel bad. He even asked me a video call and I said I didn't want to. He still proceeded to call my phone. At this point, I got very, very anxious, and as you can see, I'm literally shaking in this video because I was so scared. I didn't want to do it, so I chose not to. I told him I didn't want to video call him because I was scared my parents would walk in. He told me to go to the bathroom. This is what he said. Then he gave me attitude and he removed me off Snapchat, as you can see. What pissed me off the most is how he questioned my confidence. I'm going to be posting part 3. I'm running out of time.
And this I find so disheartening because someone like James Charles, we've seen abuse his power time and time and time again. And he's a fast talker. He's an intelligent man. And I think because of those things, he's been able to talk himself out of any situation. And anybody who criticizes him for abusing his platform or abusing his power, James kind of just tells off in under 15 seconds. And unabashedly, I'm going to bring up Trisha Paytas again as an example. The way she expressed a few months ago that she was uncomfortable with James's mentorship of Charli D'Amelio. Trisha was critical of James, said that she felt that his friendship as a 21-year-old man with a 16-year-old girl looked and felt predatory, even if she's okay with it, even if the family thinks everything's okay. She said that from her experience hanging out with adults that were mentors or friends or whatever, like she was subject to abuse of some sort and was unaware of it because she was a teenager. And I think that it's fair, even if that is not what's going on with James Charles and Charli D'Amelio as an example, even if they really do have an innocent, platonic, well-supervised arrangement, this mentorship, I don't think it's okay to write off and tell off Trisha Paytas or anyone for having that concern, especially if that concern is coming out of personal experience and personal trauma. If you want to make your case for what you're doing, make your case, but don't make somebody feel less than for being concerned about a child spending time with an adult. And at this point, I don't know if we can keep giving James the benefit of the doubt. Now that I have seen the conversations, I don't remember the name of the young man But of course, you guys all know at this point, somebody new has come out and said that James Charles was soliciting lewd photographs and conversation out of a minor. And these things get hairy because we've seen people like that Gage, what's his name, the dude with the tortilla chips.
And he just continues to lead himself on, I guess you could say.
We've seen guys like him, in my opinion, flirt with James Charles to get something out of it. Kind of going back to that whole power dynamic thing, trying to get a little fix of power. I believe that certain people have preyed on James Charles for a bit of his power, just as he has preyed on other people, particularly straight men and here teenage boys, to gratify his sexual pleasures. And at this point, I do think that it's a problem with James Charles. I don't think the fact that certain people have tried to take advantage of James Charles, that doesn't absolve James Charles for taking advantage of other people. And again, it goes back to wondering who's at fault. I'm less inclined to care about that. I will say the person who has more power needs to be more cognizant of that power. Aside from that, it's more of a conversation and less of a blame game. But I will say when you're dealing with children, I have no problem placing blame. And that's where we are with James Charles. I saw the video that this young man, this boy posted of the conversations he was having with James Charles. And I saw James's response was something like, I'll ask for an ID or a passport anytime I talk to anyone now. And that almost, to me, sounds like a fuck you. It's what I call a fuck pal face apology. If you are old enough to remember Dane Cook's jokes, it's a fuck pal face. Because it sounds ridiculous. It sounds ridiculous to think that we'd have to ask for somebody's ID or passport anytime that we want to talk to them. Because it is ridiculous. I've dated a number of people. I've never asked for an ID or a passport when talking to them. Yet I've never been in this situation before. I've never been in any sort of inappropriate situation with a minor. And I would venture to say that that is the case for most people. Sure, you can argue more people are clamoring for James's attention, but I don't know that being any certain level of famous has any bearing on the chances that you'll be put in a situation where you may unknowingly be committing a crime against a minor. I don't think that that goes hand in hand with fame. I think that that goes hand in hand with the people that you're surrounding yourself by, the spaces that you're going into, the kind of conversations you're having, and James is doing something wrong. I do recognize that his platform brings in the attention of a lot of young people, and James Charles is an adult. He is an adult who's been at this for a number of years now, and at this point, needs to be super cautious and super aware of what he's doing with his platform, especially if he knows that there are a bunch of 16-year-old kids watching his content and trying to get in touch with him. Maybe stop trying to find a boyfriend on TikTok or Snapchat or all these places where people can be more easily dishonest about their age, because at the end of the day, David Dobrik and Seth Francois can play the blame game. Shane Dawson and Jeffree Star can toss blame if they want, but you cannot play a blame game with a child. And as special as James Charles thinks he is, you are not so special that you're the only one who's getting caught up in these spaces where kids are trying to pretend they're adults. Like, that's just not happening across the board. So why is it happening to James Charles? I'll tell you why. It's because James Charles has a problem. James Charles has, at this point, I can't know for sure, but it's starting to look like he's got a problem of a sexual nature. And at this point, I don't think he should be trusted around underage people, children. I think sometimes it is fair to say that these influencers are being baited. I've said that about that Gage guy. I've said that about the way Jeff Wittick has interacted with James Charles. I'm sure it happens in a lot of these spaces where people want a taste of that power. But you are always 100% unequivocally in the wrong when you're the adult in the situation and you're having these conversations with 16-year-old boys. It's going to take more than some sort of notepad apology with some, I'm sorry, sarcastic ass remark at the end about needing to check passports or whatever, or a pity grab, or I don't know what I want to call that, but it's not real. It's almost like he wanted to shine a light on how like ridiculous it is to think that he can follow through with only talking to adults. It's not ridiculous, and it doesn't take looking at a passport. It means perhaps you should be looking for love in different spaces, or better yet, you should maybe stop looking for love, and by love I mean sex. Maybe you should stop looking for that for a little while and get some help. Because if you keep finding yourself coming up in these situations with underage boys and straight guys who feel manipulated, something's wrong. Something is not clicking about who you're compatible with and who you're sexually attracted to. And it's not just a simple compatibility, like, oh, I can't find the right guys thing. It is a severe and egregious violation of people's sense of safety and well-being. And so I think by and far right now, the one influencer that seriously needs a big reality check is James Charles. And Shane Dawson did say that he needed a slice of humble pie the size of the moon or something like that. And I did say in a video that the whole Bi Sisters thing was kind of a humbling experience that he probably needed. And that gets all kinds of complicated because we don't agree with Shane Dawson in general. We don't agree with what Tati Westbrook did with that video. But yet it can still be true that this man needs to be humbled. And it's so difficult to humble somebody who not only has so much power, but so fucking much ego as James Charles. Like I said, he can argue his way out of anything. And if you disagree with James Charles and you have some sort of criticism on James Charles, guess what? You're stupid. And he's going to tell you why at 5 times speed of a regular person talking. Like, it's a very intimidating thing to deal with people like that. And he is going to be his own downfall because he's enabling his own behavior by getting out of trouble every single time. And it's just going to lead to more destruction. And we've heard that he and his friends have made these jokes that like, well, I can get whatever I want. I'm famous. I'm a celebrity. And James Charles can say that's a joke all he wants. But I really think that he is so consumed with being not just influencer famous, but like a mainstream celebrity, that it is going to ruin him and a lot of people in his wake. So James Charles is never going to see this video, but I wish that somebody would make it clear to him that at this rate, he is, one, committing crimes left and right. Like, at worst, he's on his way to prison. At best, he's going to go down looking like the tryhard at the cool kids table, as much as he's trying to milk the power game to become a mainstream celebrity. It's a dangerous game. So if you are somebody with any sort of stature, any sort of power, be cognizant of that. If you have a fan base, don't weaponize your fans, but maybe try to use that platform for good. There are a lot of lessons that can come out of this whole concept of power imbalance, and power abuse. If I were to get into it all, this video would be hours and hours long, and I've got to pack. But that's just kind of my 2 cents for now. I don't have anything really all that like structured or any sort of amazing wisdom. I just really kind of wanted to vent that out because it is banana sandwich to me what is going on in the YouTube world, and how just dense these people seem to be to what is actually going on. You've got a platform, and with that comes power. And this is not the first time you're hearing someone say, with great power comes great responsibility. And that's the part that a lot of YouTubers and influencers are forgetting. You're forgetting the responsibility that comes along with it. So if you are the ringleader to all your friends, you need to be the responsible one with what you do with that power. If you've got millions and millions and millions of dollars to throw around and people get excited when they see that and they hear that they can maybe get in on that, you need to be responsible. If we're talking the ethics of owning a platform. But certainly, if you are an adult dealing with children, nobody is responsible in that situation except you. That child bears no responsibility in that situation. It's all you, James Charles. So I'm just sick of him right now. I really hope that he takes some time. That's my rant. I hope to have something a little bit lighter or just more organized to talk about soon when I get to my new place in Savannah. I don't know how similar it's going to look there as it does here, but I did want to get a chance to talk to you guys one last time while I'm still here. So thanks for letting me have this like weird, awkward rant. So to you, the one person who's watching, who's not me, I love you, dude. Thank you for coming back. Thank you for staying to the end. Thank you for hitting that like button, you know? And yeah, if you want to hear my thoughts on more of these creators, I think it's time we should branch out the conversation a little bit more. So tell me your thoughts or your questions or whatever. In the comments. I want to start talking more about these other creators because there's a lot to be said. So let's you and I carry this conversation over to Savannah, where I'll be the next time you see me. All right, thanks. Bye.
In light of everything that's happening with James Charles, I just want to remind you, if you've ever been approached by someone you look up to, who you see as a role model influence, and they've asked you to do something like send a picture or a video and you did it, this is not your fault. It's an abuse of power from their end. If they're targeting fans, it's because they know that they're more likely to do what they say, because in both your eyes you are not equals. You, as a fan, are more likely to say yes out of fear of disappointing someone you look up to. Influencers, stay in your lane.